Hello?
Hello, Victoria.
Sorry.
Could you say that again, please?
We're now live.
We're now live. Thank
Yeah,
you.
sorry.
Could I remind members to please either switch their phones off or to put them on mute, please? As I said earlier, welcome everyone to the meeting, and just some of the procedural rules, please, that all participants will be invited to unmute their microphone to speak and should mute this again immediately when they have finished speaking. Participants who fail to mute themselves will be muted by the chair or the Democratic Services Officer. Members may raise a point of order by use of the chat facility. In raising the point of order, the member should indicate the procedure rule or the part of the law that is being breached. The Executive Director shall alert the chair of the meeting to the point of order, and the chair shall consider the issues at the end of any speech that is being delivered at the time the point is raised. The ruling of the chair on the point is final, as set out in the Council's procedural rules. Points of personal exclamation are permitted. Members should use the chat facility within MS Teams in order to alert the chair that they wish to make a point of personal explanation. So, moving to the agenda, item 2.
I think some members still have their cameras on.
Sorry, I hadn't noticed. Yes, could everyone please switch their cameras off? Thank you. Item 2, to receive apologies. Are we aware of any apologies? Does anyone have any apologies that they wish to report? None? Okay. Moving to item 3, we have the minutes from the 16th of September and the 5th of October, and excuse me, I will move both of those sets of minutes.
Madam Mayor, it's Councillor Llewellyn Nash here.
Yes, I was just about to call you, Councillor Llewellyn Nash. Go on.
Yes, my votes weren't recorded in the minutes for the first couple of votes that we had. I was just wondering why that was. I was at the meeting. Some of my votes have been recorded, but others haven't.
I can't give you an answer to that, but we will make sure that you are included in those votes, Councillor Llewellyn Nash.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So I have moved the minutes of those two meetings. Is there a seconder for those 2 minutes, two sets of minutes, please?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, you wish to second? Or Councillor Jackson, did you wish to speak? I saw your hand go up.
No, Madam Mayor, I was just going to second the minutes, but it's already been done.
Thank you. Could I ask if everyone is in favour of those minutes? I don't intend to take a vote unless I see any dissent amongst any of the members. If there is no dissent, I will assume that everyone present agrees the minutes. I see no dissent, so those minutes are formally agreed. Thank you. Item 4, declaration of interest. They are all, oh sorry, Councillor Evans.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't wish to challenge the accuracy of the minutes, but I would like to speak to the minutes if I'm allowed to. Only be 10 seconds. I just wanted to make the point that on the second minutes, under questions by members, I certainly didn't receive the answer to my question. The only time I've seen it is in the draft minutes. So could I just ask that if members do submit questions, can we have a response within a suitable time period, if possible, rather than 3 months down the line? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jill Shepherd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I just, under declarations of interest, could it just be noted that Councillor Sargent has acquired my declarations of interest for Wembrook Community Centre? It's actually mine. It's just slipped into the wrong column.
Okay, we'll make sure that gets amended, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Brown. Councillor Brown, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to echo what Councillor Evans said earlier. I certainly didn't get the response to my question, and the first I knew of it was when it was printed in the minutes here. So I would absolutely echo what he says about members having answers to their questions in a timely fashion. The minutes also indicate that a response was given at the meeting when in fact they weren't.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Brown. So I have moved the minutes, and other than the points that have been raised, we have got a seconder. The minutes were agreed, and then the points were raised afterwards. So thank you. We're moving on to declarations of interest, and Councillor Jill Shepherd has already said there was a problem with one of them, which will be changed. So could I ask if there are any further declarations of interest that anyone may wish to make? Councillor Phillips.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Under my declarations of interest, it still has that I am, hold on, I am still non-executive director with Nuneaton and Bedworth Community Enterprise Limited. We will need to remove that, Chair.
Thank you. Those arrangements will be made, Councillor Phillips. Are there any further points that anyone wishes to make on declaration of interest? Okay. Moving to agenda item 5. I do have one announcement that I want to make. This time last year, we were all looking forward to our usual Christmas festivities. Not so this year, when we're still trying to combat COVID-19. Many families in our borough and across the country find themselves having lost close relatives and friends, and of course, including very recently, one of our own popular employees. And they were all largely as a result of this dreadful pandemic. I feel this is the right time that we as a council show our respect to every person who has lost their life and who won't be with their families this Christmas. Could I please ask for a minute's silence in respect and memory of those loved ones? Thank you. Thank you all very much. Moving on to item 6, on the agenda, which is public participation. We have 9 written questions or statements which have been received from the public. These will be read out by the Executive Director, Brent. Brent, do you want to read the questions, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first question is from Mr. Sam Margrave. Please can the leader, cabinet member or appropriate officer of the council tell us tonight and publish online which councillors no longer reside in this borough or are not currently on the electoral roll or not eligible to be local government electors for the borough of Nuneaton and Bedworth, and when those councillors moved out of Nuneaton, Bedworth or Bulkington or ceased to be currently on or not eligible to be on the electoral roll, and the qualification for eligibility criteria that all councillors currently are on the electoral roll under. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Brent. Councillor Jackson, do you wish to reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The answer is no, we can't. This is for a number of reasons. Publication of the electoral roll is controlled by law. It is open to inspection but cannot be reproduced online. Importantly, it is unlawful to be able to search the register by name, as it is a property-based register. The consent to nomination, which is completed during the nomination process, giving the reason to eligibility of a candidate, is open for inspection at the close of nomination and up until the day before poll. After this time, nominations are not available for inspection and are destroyed 12 months later. This information is therefore no longer available. The only information the council publishes is in connection with members' declarations of interest, which can be viewed on the council's website. However, members can request in certain circumstances that their address be withheld. This would be, for example, if there is a risk of harm or intimidation to the member or their family. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Brent, do you want to do the question from Mr. Lee Downs, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The question from Mr. Lee Downs is, could the council please inform me how much money it wasted on seeking legal advice in banning Councillor Evans from speaking at the last full council after the mayor wouldn't let him speak? I believe the council had to take legal advice from a QC after the meeting to determine whether it was legal for the council to ban Councillor Evans from speaking. If this is the case, could the council please state how much it cost? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, do you wish to reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The question in relation to the lawfulness of the motion passed by full council to silence Councillor Evans from speaking further at the meeting on the 16th of was raised by Councillor Evans himself. As a result, it was deemed appropriate to seek independent legal advice from a barrister to support the advice given by officers to the council alongside other issues that had arisen in that meeting. The barrister is not a QC, but was suitably qualified and advises local authorities in such matters regularly. There was no separate fee sought for this advice specifically. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Brent, do you want a question from Mrs. Anne Brown, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The question from Mrs. Anne Brown is, I recently read in an Audit and Standards Committee report that the council decided to override the decision of a full council budget meeting by increasing the menu at the Civic Hall Bistro. This was due to the council receiving a petition. From my recollection, the petition at the time was an online petition which the council bans residents from using. Could I ask Councillor Ian Lloyd whether the petition submitted to the council regarding the Civic Hall Bistro was a petition submitted in accordance with the council's petition scheme? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Lloyd, do you wish to reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, it is understood a hard copy petition was forwarded to the Managing Director as the nominated petitions officer in January 2018. It was dealt with in accordance with the Borough Council's petition scheme as an ordinary petition. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lloyd. Brent, do you have a question or a statement from Mrs. Michelle Condarco?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Mrs. Condarco's question is, the rate of COVID infection, particularly in North Warwickshire and Nuneaton and Bedworth, has led to the whole county being in Tier 3 restrictions. The COVID recovery plan that went to Cabinet made little reference to the current second wave or tackling any hotspots, such as those recently seen in Bedworth. How, specifically, are the Borough Council working with the County Council to help those wards with high rates of COVID to reduce the rates and get the Borough and County into Tier 2 and hopefully quickly into Tier 1? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Brent. Councillor Beaumont, do you wish to reply?
No,
Madam Mayor, I thought
you
I
may
was.
wish to refer to the leader.
Sorry, Councillor Jackson, do you wish to reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The aim of the COVID recovery plan is to support all areas of the borough in recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic, rather than dealing with the response to the second wave. For that, we are working closely with Warwickshire County Council's public health team as the body and have an incident management team in place which meets weekly. This team reviews current cases, case data and trends, and agrees actions to forward to help reduce the case rates in the borough. This includes a wide range of communications being sent to our residents on a regular basis. Most recently, we have sent targeted text messages to thousands of residents to highlight the increase in cases in their areas and to encourage them to follow government guidelines closely. We have also written a joint letter to all schools and have worked with schools and local businesses in particular hotspots to display posters with COVID awareness messages. We are now working to implement targeted community testing, which will run alongside drive-through and walk-in test sites, both of which currently operate from Borough Council buildings. All of this, of course, still relies on our residents following the latest government guidelines and Tier 3 restrictions to reduce our case numbers. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Brent, could you give us the question from the statement, sorry, from Mr. Carl Mayer?
I believe, Madam Mayor, the next one is from Mr. Jeff Langsbridge.
Well, my apologies. My apologies. Yeah, Mr. Jeff Langsbridge. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. How very disappointed I was to hear that this council's planning committee's decision to refuse the application for North Warwickshire and Hinckley College had been overturned by the planning inspectorate. Last year, we were told with confidence by the ruling Labour group that if we adopted a local plan, we would be able to, with ease, stop big development, especially in green spaces outside of the plan until the current plan ends. Big problems ahead, one thinks, given it is only just shy of 18 months into a plan that has 11 years to go. Given the current situation, would it maybe be a good idea to speed ahead with the review of the local plan housing targets as promised by a previous full council vote? It could be said that the current worrying situation is like going back in time to 2015, when the then portfolio holder for planning and ex-councillor Danny Aldington claimed that not having a plan in place left the planning committee powerless regards major developments. There seems no points to residents in actually having the current inflated numbers within the plan if the council cannot maintain a 5-year land supply, which could you tell me currently stands at?
Thank you. Councillor Beaumont, do you wish to reply?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. The council's current 5-year land supply position stands at 5.135 years. This position was challenged at the North Warwickshire and Hinckley College planning appeal, and the planning inspector did not determine to change the position. With respect to the adopted borough plan, the housing figures identified in the plan are a minimum. The requirement for the figures to be a minimum was inserted by the Borough Plan Inspector and is commonplace in local plans across the country. With respect to a Borough Plan review, the Council have committed to undertaking this, and the first round of consultation is scheduled for May 2021. Under planning legislation, there are statutory steps the Council must follow to ensure that the plan can be found sound. These steps will, in part, determine the speed at which a review can be undertaken. In addition, the Council are keen to ensure suitable public involvement is incorporated in the review, which will again have a bearing on the timescales for completing the review. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beaumont. Move then now to Brent, to Mr. Carmayer, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Given that the ruling Labour group have not listened to one single resident of the borough regards the local plan since its existence, it's ever likely the brains behind the plan have all gone. It could be alleged that they could see what the future would bring. It's really time for the Borough Plan Committee, that thus far has been as much use as a chocolate teapot, to step up to the plate and review immediately and stop dragging its feet, especially given the stern work done by a local campaigner on exposing ONS miscalculated figures on housing targets for the area. I'm pretty sure some of you would have read it in The Guardian. Many months ago, this council voted to review its housing targets within its local plan. Then, after some waffle of excuses from the previous portfolio holder for planning, we have ended up nowhere fast. Currently, I understand the reason for not reviewing is that we are awaiting the results of a government consultation. Oddly, this doesn't seem to affect other parts of council planning business, which seem unaffected and roar on with gusto. During a recent single member for planning meeting, the debate was laughable, with certain participants proposals and the actual results.
Brent, can I just interrupt you to go back one sentence because we lost you?
Sorry, thank you. So, during a recent single member for planning meeting, the debate was laughable, with certain participants in the ruling Labour group not understanding the difference between consultation proposals and the actual result that will occur when the government white paper is adopted to law. The highlight of the debate was when Councillor Glass, after the usual rhetoric around about the Tories and developers being involved in developers' charter, was told by an officer that under the current government consultation proposals mechanism, the housing targets would be far less than the one Councillor Glass voted to adopt, given the duty to cooperate is proposed to be scrapped. This would instantly reduce the council's housing targets by 4,020 dwellings. The review is needed as soon as possible for many reasons, especially given the lack of progress with the adopted plan itself, which seems to be becoming too big to handle, and with the recent loss of an appeal against development at the college in Hinkley Road, it seems to suggest that the very basic reasons we were told by the ruling group that we needed a plan has been lost after a mere 18 months, and the developers with sites not within the plan are circling above the planning committee like vultures, smelling the insecurity and powerlessness we were told by the portfolio holder for planning and chair of the planning committee would be a thing of the past. It could be said that this plan has already run out of ideas regarding functioning properly, and that the 5-year land supply has fallen below its 5-year legal requirement. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Beaumont, do you wish to reply?
No, Madam Mayor, I don't.
Thank you. Mr. Lubskovic submitted a question. Brent, would you like to read it out, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. During the October half-term holiday, the Borough Council organised a scheme to provide meals and hampers for families who had children on free school meals. Why, therefore, were the only places you could get a hamper from based in Nuneaton, while in Bedworth there was only provision to pick up packed lunches? In Bulkington, there was no provision for packed lunches or hampers, depriving the several dozen families of food they were entitled to. For a Bulkington-based resident to go to Nuneaton for a hamper would have cost £6.10 return bus fare. I and many others in our community found this unacceptable, that some of the most financially disadvantaged were not given easy access to an essential service. Once again, and not for the first time, Bulkington has been forgotten by this Borough Council, this time to the detriment of children who had to go without food. I have written to the council about this matter and received an acknowledgement of my complaint, but a month later I have heard nothing further. I would like the leader of the council to assure me that Bulkington will not be overlooked during the Christmas holidays and that outlets will be found within the village that will supply lunches and hampers for the most vulnerable. Furthermore, could I ask once again asked that these sorts of schemes are not just publicised on the Borough Council's social media, as many who do not read or follow MBBC on social media. Could you please take the time to write to schools or individuals, making them aware that this help and support is available? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, do you wish to reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The provision of free school meals is a Warwickshire County Council responsibility. But given the issues nationally and locally around the October half term, the council supported a local project in Nuneaton to be able to increase the amount of support they were able to give. We did approach similar projects in Bedworth, but found that they were already adequately supported and did not need any further assistance. We did agree to promote the schemes that they were offering to encourage take-up. In terms of Christmas, the government has now provided a COVID winter grant scheme, which is to provide support for those families who would normally access a free school meal. This will be delivered by Warwickshire County Council, so I am not able to confirm whether there will be a scheme specifically in Bulkington or how the scheme will be promoted. However, we continue to work with our voluntary and community sector locally to identify any gaps in support and how the Borough Council may be able to support them. Let us be clear. The government initially decided not to support free school meals during the October half term. Thankfully, they have done a U-turn following the outstanding campaign by Marcus Rashford to ensure that no child suffers hunger during the winter. We live in one of the richest countries in the world, and I fully supported the efforts of Marcus Rashford's campaign. Children should not go hungry. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Corinne from Bulkington Residents' Voice submitted a question. Brent, would you like to read it, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The statement submitted reads as follows. The council assured residents of this borough that once the borough plan was adopted, that we would have a housing land supply which would take us over the 5-year threshold and would protect and safeguard the borough from further approaches by developers. It seems that this is not the case, as North Warwickshire College has now been given permission to build further houses which are outside the plan. Why is this council intent on overdeveloping this borough? It feels like once again this council has been dishonest and underhand with the residents on this emotive matter. It is now time to start the promised review of the borough plan as a matter of urgency. You did not get the government guidance that you expected last month, giving you the green light to build, build, build. Instead, we see Coventry City Council come under pressure to review their numbers by both local Labour and Conservative MPs. Surely now is the time to admit that the plan you have put in place is not fit for purpose and the numbers it is based on are flawed and need to be urgently reviewed. It is time to cut at least 4,000 houses from the borough plan, starting with the Coventry allocation. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Brent. Councillor Beaumont, do you wish to reply?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. With respect to the North Warwickshire and Hinckley College planning decision, the planning committee refused permission. The applicant appealed the decision, which is within their gift. While the council defended its position, the planning inspector decided to grant the permission. With respect to the adopted borough plan, the housing figures identified in the plan are a minimum. The requirement for the figures to be a minimum was inserted by the borough plan inspector and is commonplace in local plans around the country. With respect to a borough plan review, the council have committed to undertaking this, and the first round of consultation is scheduled for May 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beaumont. That concludes the public questions. We will move on to agenda item 7, the special urgency decisions. There have been 5 decisions made under special emergency decisions, and these are shown on page 4 of the agenda and are reported to Council for transparency. These are for questions only. Is there any member wishing to speak? Councillor Kondarka.
Thank you very much, Chair. We understand why we took the virtual meeting protocol decision as urgent, but can the leader or officers, someone, tell me if we're going to revise this, because there's various issues. Potentially, we don't know if members are always present at meetings for votes, because we just get, other than people like me who speak, just an icon. And so I'd just like to ask if it's going to be revised and if we can have proper consultation on a more lasting virtual meeting protocol. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kondarka. Your points have been noted. So we will, are there any further questions? Councillor Golby.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was actually going to make a similar point, because we can't always tell who's voting on behalf of who, and we need clarity on that. So I'd like the virtual meeting protocol to be changed to reflect that whoever is casting a vote needs to have a video and voice available to be able to cast that vote. Thank you.
I thought that was what we did, that you could put your screen on at the same time as you voted. You don't have to leave your screen off when you're voting.
Oh, that's good to know. Then I'd like that instilled if we can, because it didn't quite work last time.
Sorry, just one moment, please, Councillor Golby. Sorry, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm quite happy to have a meeting with the leaders of the groups to look again at the remote meeting policy. I have to say that it isn't always possible for every single member to have both audio and microphone on. It does very much depend upon broadband width, but I suggest the leaders of the various groups get together and discuss this with senior officers. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I'm sure that can be put into place. So if there are no, Councillor Gisane.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Just a really quick one while we're talking about the protocols, because some of us have had issues, obviously, with bandwidth and things lagging, and we turn video off, obviously, to make it better. But one of the issues we had recently in an OSP was contacts. I was sat at a screen looking, hearing, and whatever happened, my phone is always on do not disturb or mute. But can we put into place in this in the rules when we're doing virtual meetings that we try and contact members through the platform we're using, which is Teams? We can call people through that. So if I'm sat here ignoring personal phones, looking at a screen, contacting members through the platform we're using could be helpful.
I don't know the answer to your question, Councillor Gisane. We will refer it to our IT people to see if that is possible for it to be done. So thank you for your comments.
Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Evans.
Yes. Oh, I haven't got the camera on. There we go. Yes. Hello. Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The virtual meeting protocol gives councillors the opportunity to dial in by phone to meetings. Could I therefore ask, given that you've ruled, Madam Mayor, that when a member votes they have to turn a camera on, does that mean that those members who are currently dialing in by phone are not allowed to vote?
Councillor Evans, I never said I had made a ruling. I said I thought that that was within the protocol. And I have said that we will be looking at that to see if there is anything that we can do to make it better and to change things. I did not make a ruling. Councillor Longdon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The issue for me is all this going on about what's being used. It means I'm going to have some training or something, because when I put my camera on, everything else goes skew with. So I've got to get that fixed, or I've got to find out what I'm doing wrong, if I'm doing anything wrong. So whatever is considered, then I think we ought to have a bit of training on it as well, so we know what we're doing. Because at the moment, I can't do both. Well, I can try and do both, but it goes a bit peculiar, I really tell you. So I have to leave my camera off. I'll try to put it on, but probably won't be able to talk to anybody. That's gone. That's gone on itself now. So it's not me, but it's a machine. So thank you.
Thank you. It is pretty obvious that we do need to. I don't have any more questions. It's pretty obvious that, bearing in mind the points that have been made, we do need to have another look to see how the team's operation is working and what we might be able to do better. So thank all of you for your questions in relation to that. So if we could then move on to the Cabinet report, and I would remind members that again, this is only questions only. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is actually found on page 42 of the report rather than page 40 as on the front page of the agenda. As always, Madam Mayor, the report is there and either myself or members of the Cabinet are more than happy to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you. And I will remind members again, it is questions. Councillor Evans.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to ask the Leader of the Council a question in relation to item 3A, the draft General Fund and HRA budget for 2021-2022. Obviously, the report that went to Cabinet detailed a number of savings that the Labour group intend to make as part of the budget process. What I failed to see within that list was the In Touch magazine being scrapped. And could I ask the Leader of the Council if the Labour group are intent on continuing to publish the In Touch magazine physically, then it goes out to public consultation between now and February as to whether or not residents actually want the In Touch magazine to continue.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Evans is talking about something that did not appear on the report, and so it is very difficult for me to comment about something that wasn't included in the report. That said, I think particularly in the current climate, getting information to all of our residents, not only those who are able to access information online, but for those who don't have computer access, a hard copy has been very important. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Condocle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a couple of questions. My first one is on the meeting of the 11th when the General Fund was discussed and HRA. At that meeting, it was mentioned about the £700,000 for fire wardens this financial year. Can I ask the Cabinet Member for Housing, hopefully without him attacking me again for wanting old people to die, what the current run rate is and what the outturn expected for those fire wardens is for the financial year? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Can I suggest Councillor Watkins is better placed?
Councillor Watkins as the portfolio holder, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Concourt asks this question at every meeting and it will get the same answer at every meeting. The fire wardens will be there until the work is done. The work will not go over the end of the financial year. That's the answer, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. So I have no further questions to be asked. So,
Madam Mayor, I did say I had a couple of questions. I was doing
you did. I apologise, Councillor Condacour. Yes, you did. Your second question.
Thank you very much. Second out of third, three. Can I ask Councillor Lloyd about the leisure facilities stuff, which was discussed on the 14th of October? The Top Farm part of that for the sports centre has captured the project to build a GP surgery. Top Farm is running horrendously late and the planning application has not been considered. Can I ask the portfolio holder what the timescale is for the Top Farm sports development at the moment? Thank you.
Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Kondaka, as a county councillor, is in a better position to answer his own question by asking the county council, because the Tops Farm development is a county council development. All we're doing as a borough council is we've shown an interest on actually putting extra facilities into there or enhancing the facilities of Top Farm. So I can't answer his question. I don't know. He needs to ask the county council.
Thank you. You had a third question. You said, Councillor Condacour.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Yeah, this is about the town centre regeneration, which was also discussed at that meeting, which is item D. This is for the leader, obviously. We're getting lots of spin in the media at the moment with photo montages of what's planned for Abbey Street. Can I ask the leader if we've done a full business case yet for phase 1, which was approved without a business case at the cabinet meeting, and also what the business case or outlook for phase 2 is, because obviously cinemas are looking a bit dubious in terms of business cases at the moment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Jackson.
I can assure members that full business cases will be done at the appropriate time. We will never enter into things without having done so. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I don't have any more speakers wishing to ask questions, so we will move on to agenda item 9. Recommendations from Cabinet or other committees. 9A is the report of the Climate Change Emergency Working Party. It sets out some recommendations from the working party, and Councillor Watkins, as chair of the working party, do you wish to move the recommendations?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the recommendations that's in the report. It's actually on page 45. It says here that it's on 43, but it's actually on 45. So just move them recommendations, please, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Is there a seconder for the for Councillor Watkins, please?
Yes, I will second that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Before anyone else points it out, I will just note that the agenda item does say that the portfolio is Councillor Phillips, but it is actually Councillor Beaumont, Councillor Watkins. Right, are there any speakers? Yes, Councillor Condacour.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was very happy we voted for climate emergency declaration and bitterly disappointed what the outcome was. This plan is like chucking a cup of water on a forest fire. It totally is inadequate, is nowhere near what other councils in Warwickshire are doing. And if you go through the really important areas, it's totally lacking any teeth or any substance. If we take the issues of planting trees, this council has been systematically chopping trees down at our housing complexes, particularly in Wellington at the moment. We lost a beautiful oak tree a couple of weeks ago. The ambition to plant 100 trees is totally worthless. We need to be planting tens of thousands of trees. And this council has not even replacing the trees that are being lost by reviews to housing. We also have planning. Planning is a massive issue, and we are doing nothing to ensure that developers do more than the absolute minimum, and we're not even enforcing the minimum on developers. The housing we're building in Nuneaton and Bedworth is appalling in terms of its climate impact. Even simple things like orientating the houses to capture the most sunlight, which doesn't actually cost much, it's a case of design, isn't being forced on developers. We have waste and recycling. That should be a massive area which should be becoming zero carbon. We have no plans to do anything substantial other than crisp packets. This is a really, really pathetic attempt. And on things like transport, we're not the transport authority, but when we are the planning authority, and when we build new developments, me and Michelle have to chase up the planning department to get the footpaths installed to link the developments to the bus stops. All this basic stuff of making a walkable, sustainable, green borough isn't happening. And I'm going to have the remarkable option of actually voting against our climate change strategy because it is woefully inadequate. We have an emergency. It's like a forest fire. We need to treat it like an emergency and have some teeth in our plan, not just this very, oh, we've got something, we're going to recycle crisp packets. Recycling crisp packets is nowhere near enough. We need a radical climate action plan. We need to get our planning department working well with good policies on climate change. We need to sort out waste and recycling. We need to sort out our transport issues ourselves. The one thing we do well is insulate buildings. We have some good work on that, but that's happening anyway. So I'm going to be voting against this and really ask that we have a decent climate change policy, a decent climate change champion who understands the issues and will be passionately trying to get real measurable differences. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I remember speaking on this when it first came to full council. I think it's almost 2 days, it'll be a year ago, to the day that we considered this. And I spoke passionately about it then due to my interest in environmental affairs and in particular scuba diving, etc. There are many laudable issues within this proposed action plan. But unfortunately, it is lacking in some of the basics and fundamentals that you would expect to see in an action plan to tackle what we have designated quite rightly as an emergency. So there is no benchmarking of where we are. Nowhere in this document does it say how many tonnes of CO2 per year this council is responsible for directly, or how many tonnes of CO2 per year this borough is responsible for as a collective, for example, the CO2 that we emit as individuals and communities. So we don't even know if what we do possibly will actually makes a difference. If we don't know the baseline, how do we know whatever measures we put into place have been successful? There have been no targets put in place for any reductions in this action plan to move forward. There has been no consideration whatsoever of new green technologies which are emerging all the time and how we can possibly capitalise and grasp those opportunities and bring that investment direct into this borough. At the moment, we can all see around us that the economy is struggling through the effects of the COVID pandemic. Surely, with new green investment and technology coming forward, and I believe the government has recently announced a 10-point plan to tackle green issues, nowhere within this report does it say how we will look to seek to bring in those technologies and create a green technology base in Nuneaton and Bedworth. That is a real missed opportunity for us here. There's been no consideration in this report of the financial implications to this council of these actions and activities, whether there will be a cost to us or a benefit. So, for example, there is a line in here about reducing the temperature of our swimming pools by 1 or 2 degrees. Surely that would have an impact on us by reducing not only our CO2 emissions, but also on how much we pay out to heat the swimming pools. It's basic things like that. And finally, there is no report to full council annually, which I would have thought, given that we have declared a climate change emergency, would be imperative for us to be actually be able, as a full council, as a democratically elected body, to debate what we have done, what we need to do, and where we need to go. So this report, Madam Mayor, is undercooked. It is lacklustre in many respects and fails to actually address a number of the fundamental issues we need to look at. If you were a business and you were looking at putting a plan together, this plan would be laughed out of any organisation because it fails to look at the very fundamental issues you need to be able to build a successful change in the Climate Change Working Party and the Climate Change Action Plan. So whilst I won't go as far as Councillor Condacor in voting against, because I believe there are some laudable issues here, and actually we do need to start tackling the climate change emergency. I think voting against is a backward step. There's nothing here to address the fundamentals, so I will, and my group will be abstaining on this until the council actually makes a proper job of putting together a suitable, fully working action plan. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, I have 3 more speakers and then I plan to move to the vote. Councillor Evans.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I've only got one point that I wish to raise in relation to page 54 of the report, where it mentions communal composting. I actually raised this matter way back in 2018 at an internal overview and scrutiny panel when we had Glendale come in and sit in front of us at that meeting, and I managed to get Glendale at that meeting to say that they would actually fund communal composting in the Nuneaton and Bedworth. I raised that issue then, but the report only states that the council will consider. You know, we shouldn't be considering it, we should be doing it, and we should have been doing it at least 12 months ago. So I'm disappointed actually that the report explicitly states that they will just consider it, not that they will do it. So unfortunately, I don't really think, I think the report is not very good, so I'm just going to abstain because I don't think it's worthy of a vote.
Thank you. I have had a chat message from Councillor Condacor saying, can we have a recorded vote? Councillor Condacor, that will be dependent upon you asking for it at when we move to the vote. Councillor Gutteridge. Councillor Gutteridge. I'll move on to Councillor Brown. I'll move back to Councillor Gutteridge after Councillor Brown has spoken.
Councillor Gutteridge is muted, yeah.
Councillor Brown, did you wish to speak? No, to Councillor Gutteridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, Councillor Wilson has already spoken very eloquently on this matter and covered much of the points that I was intending to make. But the facts here remain that we have a report that's not benchmarked. There are no review dates, no critical milestone dates, no targets in it, and precious little in the way of initiative from this council. You know, it's been mentioned about crisp packet recycling. That's the sort of thing I would expect an infant school to come up with as an idea for recycling, not as a key point from a council looking to reduce its carbon footprint. So, I mean, I also noticed that on page 50 of the report, paragraph F, it's calling on the government to provide resources. But the government is willing to provide resources, but it's up to us as a council to come up with a plan that has specific things that we want resources for. Not just a blanket statement for them to provide money and we'll then think of something to spend it on afterwards. We need a report and a plan that actually has some specific things in, targets that we wish to achieve against benchmark data that states where we are now, and a timeline to say when we will do that by, and review dates set into it to show how we can measure performance. That's how any business outside of this council would proceed. That's how other councils are proceeding. And so, like Councillor Wilson has said, there are some laudable things in the report, and I don't intend to vote against it, but there is no reason to actually physically support this. So I again will be abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. The final speaker before I bring Councillor Watkins with his right to reply, Councillor Guttridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Second time lucky. I'm very disappointed about the tree planting. Our county councillor can plant trees in my ward, yet I can't plant trees, and they say we've got no land. Well, we've got some land in Whitestone that we'd like some trees on, but we can't have the trees on because the council won't plant them. So I suggest we try and get the countryside officer on board, and let's see if we can plant some trees for this great borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guttridge. Can I ask Councillors Brown and Guttridge to take their hands down, please? Okay, Councillor Watkins, you have the right to reply to the comments that have been made, and then I will move to the vote.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I've obviously listened to all the comments. I'm really disappointed in what I've heard. Councillor Condacor and quite a few other councillors were on the working group, so it was at that point when they could have brought things forward, and I actually thought that the opposition found it useful to be in on this group, this working group, and found out that some of the things, well, lots of the things that this council do are actually here. I'm also really surprised to find out that they're going to vote against an elected member being nominated to attend a Warwickshire-wide climate change group supported by an officer. I've already attended one group. I'll be attending a group meeting. I'll be attending another group meeting in the morning. The last meeting with everyone from around the county seem to be quite impressed with everything that we are doing here in the borough. In fact, they've took some of the things away that we're doing, and they're going to look at them. Like I say, Madam Mayor, we're already doing a lot of the things that we need to be doing, especially with our council houses that we're building. The modular houses are absolutely superb, almost airtight, so people don't actually need their heating on. We're going to one energy supply rather than two, which is what the government are asking for. When we ask for things like car chargers, we can't actually put all car chargers on properties because the power grid is not there. It's the infrastructure like that is not there. As I explained to Councillor Wilson last year, as he quite rightly says, he did mention about the coral beds and things. Well, this is why we won't rush in to buy in everything electric so that we ruin the coral beds. There's lots of things to look at, Madam Mayor, and that's what we're doing, and that's what we're doing at a cross-party, cross-county working group. So I'll be voting for it, Madam Mayor, and I hope that it goes through so that we continue to meet everybody around the county and can continue to try and bring ideas forward for this borough council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I have had a notice, I believe it was from Councillor Evans, for a point of personal explanation. Councillor Evans.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Wanted to make the I wanted to come back on something that Councillor Watkins said about opposition members of the working panel. I was an opposition member of the working panel. I'd just like to remind Councillor Watkins that councillors on the panel didn't actually get a final vote on the report. You may recall that it was actually delegated authority to an officer to present a report to Cabinet. The other point that I'd like to make as well is in relation to recommendation 2, that an elected member be nominated. I haven't heard any nominations yet.
Recommendation 2. Oh, I see. Yes, I see the point that you're making. Thank you for your personal explanation. I am going to move. I move to the vote. Councillor Condacor.
Can I have a recorded vote, please, Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. So, Simone, would you like to go through the members, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If you could please indicate for or against the recommendations. Councillor Beaumont.
For.
Councillor Brindley Edwards.
Abstain.
Councillor Brown.
Abstain.
Councillor Croft.
Abstain.
Could I just remind members to put their videos on when voting where possible? I appreciate in some cases connection may not allow, but if where possible, please. So Councillor Croft.
Abstain. Can you see me? Sorry.
No, but
Okay, well, he's on.
okay, all right.
Sorry.
Councillor Daffin.
For.
Councillor Doughty.
For. Simone.
Councillor Elliott.
For.
Councillor Evans.
Abstain.
Councillor Gazane.
Sorry, can you see me now? Come on.
I can now. Thank
Oh,
you.
perfect. Sorry. Against.
Councillor Glass.
For.
Councillor Golby.
Abstain.
Councillor Gran.
Abstain.
Councillor Gutteridge.
Abstain.
Councillor Hancox.
For.
Councillor Hocking.
For.
Councillor Jackson.
For.
Councillor Condacor.
Against.
Councillor Llewellyn-Nash. Councillor Llewellyn-Nash.
Sorry, abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Longdon.
For.
Councillor Pandare.
Abstain.
Councillor Phillips.
For.
Councillor Pomfret.
For.
Councillor Rudkin.
For.
Councillor A. Sargent.
For.
Councillor J. Sargent.
For.
Councillor J. Shepherd.
For.
Councillor T. Shepherd.
For.
Councillor Smith.
Abstain.
Councillor Tandy.
For.
Councillor Tromans.
Abstain.
Councillor Walmsley.
Abstain.
Councillor Watkins.
For.
And Councillor Wilson.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, you have your hand up.
Yes, Madam Mayor, in light of that being approved, I believe, can I move 2.2 that Councillor Watt be the member to attend the Warwickshire-wide climate change group?
I think we may have lost you when you said the name. I believe you said Councillor Watkins, Councillor Jackson.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I did indeed say Councillor Watkins.
Okay, thank you.
I will second that, Mayor.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Simone. Vote.
Are you taking a vote on?
I can take a vote on that if it is wished.
Okay.
Could you do the vote again, please, for this?
Councillor Evans is indicating.
Councillor Evans.
It's not on. Is it on now? Yes, it is. Yes. Could I move an amendment to Councillor Jackson's nomination and move that Councillor Brown is nominated to represent the council on this group?
Thank you. I therefore have Councillor. I have Councillor. Is there a seconder for Councillor Brown?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I seconded it. Councillor Tromans.
Councillor Tromans. Did you wish to speak, Councillor Tromans, or were you just seconding?
I think Councillor Brown would be an excellent representative, and I'm happy to second to him.
Thank you very much. So would you like to take the, I don't have further speakers, would you like to take the vote on the nomination to be a member of the County Council group?
Recorded vote.
Simone?
Okay. Again, if you could indicate for or against the amendment, please. Yes, just be clear, this is for or against the amendment. So Councillor Beaumont.
Against.
Councillor Brindley Edwards.
For.
Councillor Brown.
I'm flattered to vote for myself. Thank you.
Councillor Croft.
For.
Councillor Daffin.
Against.
Councillor Doughty.
Against.
Councillor Elliott.
Against.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Gazane. Councillor Gazane, you're muted.
4, please.
Councillor Glass.
Against.
Councillor Golby.
For.
Councillor Gran.
For.
Councillor Gutteridge.
For.
Councillor Hancox.
Against.
Councillor Hocking.
Against.
Councillor Jackson.
Against.
Councillor Condacore.
For.
Councillor Welling Nash.
For.
Councillor Lloyd.
Against.
Councillor Longden.
Against.
Councillor Pandare.
For.
Councillor Phillips.
Against.
Councillor Pomfret.
Against.
Councillor Rudkin.
Against.
Councillor A. Sargent.
Against.
Councillor J. Sargent.
Abstain.
Councillor J. Shepherd.
Against.
Councillor T. Shepherd.
Against.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Tandy.
Against.
Councillor Tromans.
For.
Councillor Walmsley.
For.
Councillor Watkins.
Against.
Councillor Wilson.
For.
That's lost, Madam Mayor.
The amendment is lost. So we will move to the substantive motion, which was moved by Councillor Jackson and seconded that Councillor Watkins be the person to serve on the County Council group of people. Simone.
You have Councillor Tromans indicating, but I don't know if that's an old hand.
Is that an old hand, Councillor Tromans?
Indeed.
It's gone now. Okay. Thank you. So if you could please indicate for or against the substantive motion. Councillor Beaumont.
For.
Councillor Brindley Edwards.
Against.
Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Croft.
Against.
Councillor Daffin.
For.
Councillor Doughty.
For.
Councillor Elliott.
For.
Councillor Evans.
Against, and could I request that my vote is recorded in the minutes?
Councillor Gazane.
Against.
Councillor Glass.
For.
Councillor Golby.
Against.
Councillor Graham.
Against.
Councillor Gutteridge.
Against.
Councillor Hancox.
For.
Councillor Hocking.
For.
Councillor Hocking. For. Councillor Jackson.
For.
Councillor Condacour.
Please record my vote against. Thank you.
Councillor Llewellyn-Nash.
Against.
Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Longden.
For.
Councillor Pandare.
Against.
Councillor Phillips.
For.
Councillor Pomfret.
For.
Councillor Rudkin.
For.
Councillor A. Sargent.
For. And record my vote in the minutes.
Councillor J. Sargent.
For.
Councillor J. Shepherd.
For.
Councillor T. Shepherd.
For.
Councillor Smith.
Against.
Councillor Tandy.
For.
Councillor Tromans.
Against.
Councillor Walmsley.
Against.
Councillor Watkins.
For.
And Councillor Wilson.
Against.
That's carried. 19.
Proposal was carried. Thank you very much. We'll move now on to agenda item 9B, which is the members' allowances, appointment of the Independent Remuneration Panel. As chair of the Audit and Standards Committee, can I move the recommendations as printed? Is there a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Councillor Pomfret.
Thank you very much. I don't see any. Councillor Condacour.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's about a 3-second delay on the hands, so apologies, it takes a while to come up. I have great admiration for Carver. They do an awful lot of stuff, but we do actually fund them. So I am always nervous about appointing people to remuneration committees who are also indirectly remunerated by the council. I do ask we look for someone more diverse and maybe that's will be more of a challenge in terms of justifying how much councillors are paid. So I've got nothing against Carver. They do lots of good stuff, but I don't think we should have our remuneration committee staffed by people who get funds from the council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Condacour. I don't have any more speakers, so I have made the proposal. It has been seconded. Is there? Could you take the vote, please, Simone?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, if you could indicate for or against, please. Councillor Beaumont.
For.
Councillor Brindley-Edwards. Councillor Brindley-Edwards. I'll come back to you. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Croft.
For.
Councillor Daffin.
4.
Councillor Doughty.
4.
Councillor Elliott.
4.
Councillor Evans.
4.
Councillor Gazane.
4.
Councillor Glass.
4.
Councillor Golby.
4.
Councillor Gran.
4.
Councillor Gutteridge.
4.
Councillor Hancocks.
4.
Councillor Hocking.
4.
Councillor Jackson.
4.
Councillor Condacour.
Against.
Councillor Llewellyn Nash.
4.
Councillor Lloyd.
4.
Councillor Longdon.
4.
Councillor Pander.
4.
Councillor Phillips.
4.
Councillor Pomfret.
4.
Councillor Rudkin.
4.
Councillor A Sargent.
4.
Councillor J Sargent.
4.
Councillor J Shepherd.
4.
Councillor T Shepherd.
4.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Tandy.
4.
Councillor Tromans.
4.
Councillor Walmsley.
4.
Councillor Watkins.
4.
Councillor Wilson.
4.
That's carried.
Councillor
Oh,
Brinley.
sorry, Councillor Brinley Edwards. Apologies.
4.
Thank you. That's carried, Madam Mayor.
That proposal is then carried, so we move on to agenda item 9C, which was a question that was submitted by Councillor Evans to the Audit and Standards Committee. This question was moved to Council for debate. I will require a motion to be moved and seconded before the debate can begin. Councillor Evans.
Right, there we go. Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I would like to put forward a recommendation to be debated, and I will put that into the chat now. But my recommendation is that this council resolves to delete Articles 419.3 and 419.4 from the Constitution with immediate effect. I will put that in the chat for members to peruse should they wish to look at it. There we go. And with your permission, I will speak to this recommendation now as the proposer. And before I do, I would actually like to thank you for allowing this to come from Audit and Standards to full council this evening. I think whatever members' views are, it's right that we are given the chance to debate this rotten clause within the council's constitution. I think that it's anti-democratic.
Councillor Evans, before you speak, I need a seconder for your proposal, please.
Okay,
I'll second that, Madam Mayor. Councillor Croft. I'll second it, and I'll reserve my right.
Croft. Okay, sorry. Continue, Councillor Evans.
Yeah, thank you. As I was saying, I think this is a rotten clause within the council's constitution. I believe it's undemocratic, and it has no moral right to sit in a council constitution in the 21st century. What the clause does is it means that some councillors whose wards are more impacted by council policy in the borough in comparison to other wards. It means that those councillors may be silenced from speaking at a meeting if the controlling group want to silence them. In respect to myself, I think it was wholly undemocratic to silence me from the meeting. I did absolutely nothing against the members' code of conduct, and the issue at hand is that the clause has no benchmark as set out in the Constitution to set out when members should be silenced. And if you look at the constitution of other councils, actually you'll find that there is a benchmark in place. And in relation to myself, it meant that as a councillor in Bedworth whose ward has been heavily hit by the borough plan by the Labour group, it meant that I was silenced and banned from speaking on a very important planning matter at the continuation meeting. I think it's simply unfair that the controlling group have the legitimacy to silence and remove councillors from a meeting just to try and inflate the Labour group's majority at the meeting on that specific night. The reality is, as I say, this clause should not be in the Constitution if it's used inappropriately by the controlling group. And I hope that members across the council will support my recommendation. This anti-democratic rotten clause within the council's constitution should be chucked out of the council's constitution tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a seconder for the proposal, which was, Councillor Croft. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is not a mechanism controlled by the Labour group. This mechanism is actually one that I believe is found in most council constitutions, because it cannot be right when members actually upset the progress of business so that business cannot be constructed. There has to be an opportunity for the chair or the mayor in this case to actually move that member not be heard and for that to be voted on. To do otherwise is to take away a power that on rare occasions is necessary. I've been a councillor, Madam Mayor, for a number of years now, and I think I can't remember actually when this power has been used before. Memory's not always as great as one would like, but I can't remember, and certainly it is a power that has been used very infrequently. It is something that the mayor has to consider, but appropriate discussion at full council that is done in an appropriate is the way this council should conduct itself. And on occasions, if members need to be reminded that their behaviour is not that one would expect, then I think it is a tool that is appropriate to be used. It is not used very frequently, but it needs to be there so that people, the rest of the councillors, can actually get on and conduct business in accordance with the democratic mandate that they've been given.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Condacor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've had this clause tried to be used against me, and actually the checks and balances sort of worked. If people recall, when there was a debate on the green bin charges, the mayor at the time decided not to let me speak, and unfortunately we had to have a bit of a standoff. And I'm very pleased actually that the councillors actually voted to let me continue to speak, and I did have my 3 minutes to speak. So there is the checks and balances in here. There actually has to be a vote of councillors to actually stop someone speaking. But I think there is a problem with that check and balance if it's just a simple majority. I do think we need to look at this issue of meetings being dragged on and filibustering and trying to keep to an agenda. I know Councillor Evans can sometimes be a pain, but we must actually preserve his right to be able to speak. Likewise, Councillor Evans hopefully understands we do need to conduct business as well. So we really shouldn't be in this place of stopping people speaking. It's really normal for chairs, including yourself, Madam Mayor, to make mistakes. And it's always good when they're corrected, and you've always noticed when you've missed a hand and things have worked well. But I really think this is an area we shouldn't be using. I think it does need a super majority or something put in the rules. So actually, it can't just be used by a group that's got a majority. But actually, I think it hasn't been badly misused too often. There is a massive tension at the moment in these meetings because they do drag on, and I'll stop dragging on now. But I think the Constitutional Working Party should have a little look at this area rather than actually get rid of the rule, because we do need some form of rule in there. Even, yeah, I'm not an anarchist. We do need to be able to control meetings, but we do also need to make sure that if we had a rogue mayor in future who didn't let people speak, that actually that mayor couldn't then disenfranchise people. So I think it's an area we need to look at in future. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Croft.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm in favour of taking both articles out of the Constitution because I think they're not very effective and they're open to abuse. The previous speakers already alluded to it, but in my time here, it's only ever been used or attempted to be used twice. And I think both examples bear that out. In the first instance, the speaker hadn't been called yet and wasn't very happy about it, and the meeting got quite disorderly, but the vote failed because the then mayor had to abandon the vote, according to my recollection, so the disorder continued. In the second instance, the recommendation to silence a member wasn't originally from the chair of the meeting. It was originally from a member of the controlling group. I know that was ruled out of order and you had to pick it up, but to my mind, in the and the meeting wasn't particularly disorderly at that point. So to my mind, when the motion could have been used to restore order to a meeting, it wasn't, and when it shouldn't have been, it was used for what looked like party reasons. So I think it's better to take them out completely, because otherwise you do run the risk of members being silenced for partisan reasons, and you run the risk of members, if they're expelled from meetings, being denied a vote for party reasons. I know it's a very crude instrument and we haven't seen it happen yet, but the potential is always there. So, and we have had the argument outside of the meeting that if the only option then would be to suspend the meeting. But if the meeting is that disorderly that you need to silence a member, that's probably the best option, and that option is still there. So I'm happy to take them both out. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I fully endorse the words of Councillor Croft in this. I thought long and hard about this because there does need to be some form of checks and balances within the Constitution. But we currently have two clauses in there which are very blunt instruments, and they're not supported by any benchmark or definition of what would constitute disruptive behaviour that would lead to these sanctions being properly invoked. And I understand that other councils have similar clauses within their constitution, and in fact that they're pretty much universal around councils across the country. But that said, other councils do have those necessary benchmarks and definitions in them. So that it's quite clear what defines disruptive behaviour. Now, you and I may think that we know what defines disruptive behaviour, but without it, it's open to one-sided interpretation. And if we go back to the instance that led to the vote in Councillor Evans' case, we did have a situation where members felt that debate had been stifled, and a number of members from different from across the chamber really were being disruptive, but Councillor Evans seemed to catch the brunt of it. Therefore, you know, it wasn't perhaps the best use of the sanction. And as Councillor Croft has pointed out, other sanctions are available. So I would certainly, in this instance, after careful thought, support the removal of these clauses. And if the Constitutional Working Review Party wants to bring them back in a better form, then clearly they could look to do that in the future. But as it is, we've got a situation where it's not very good, and we can actually resolve this in the interim. So I would support removing them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be supporting this tonight for a number of reasons. In my 11 years on this council almost, I can only remember 2 occasions where this has either been raised or actually voted upon. And it was Councillor Evans, who is the first, certainly in my period of time, who has been silenced in this chamber. But I think what we have to do is remember the context in which this arose. We were debating a serious change in, or possible change in, the governance arrangements, not just of Nuneaton and Bedworth, but the whole of the county. And we had an amendment where only 2 people were allowed to speak. That is not democratic, nor was it a debate. When it came to the substantive motion, we only had 4 speakers in total. Again, not democratic, nor a debate out of 34 councillors. And Councillor Evans and others were quite rightly frustrated that they were not allowed to have their say on behalf of their residents, because members opposite tried to shut down debate by moving to the vote, and then they were aided and abetted by the mayoralty in shutting down debate. Those are the facts, pure and simple. Let no one be under any illusion about what led to this. It was because the party opposite, in tandem with the mayoralty, decided to shut down debate. And because there isn't that yardstick, which other members have mentioned in the Constitution, it was an abuse of process, in my view. Now, there are rights and responsibilities within the Constitution, but I believe these provisions should be removed until such time as the holder of the office of mayor can be trusted to exercise them fairly and wisely. And I have to say, I do not believe that that is the case at the moment, especially whilst we are a hung council. Because let us also remember that this council is being run by people who had only 30% of the vote at the last election. They do not have a democratic mandate to run this authority. And we've seen a debate ruled as sufficient on only 2 speeches. That is wrong, pure and simple. And it is only because the other side are frightened of being exposed and being debated and being challenged that we have that position. Now, Councillor Jackson is right that other democratic institutions can exercise this ability. I think the most famous one is Parliament. But there is one key difference between Parliament and this authority, and that is the Speaker, who chairs the debates, has to surrender their political allegiance and remain completely neutral. Any mayor who currently sits in that chair retains their political allegiance, and I think it would be naive of any of us to believe that that isn't the case. And we have seen that on tied vote after tied vote after tied vote. And we have also seen that this has been abused. So until the relevant checks and balances are in place, this ability should be removed because it has been abused. And until we are allowed fair debate and fair speech about significant and substantial issues which affect our residents, no one should have that ability to silence a councillor who was trying to exercise their right to speak. And it was only because the party opposite were petty in not wanting to have proper debate over the issue that this situation arose. But I will be voting for Councillor Evans' proposal because it is the safest way to proceed until there is fairness within the Constitution. Councillor Condacor's idea of a supermajority has merit, but let's face it, from a controlling group which denies us supplementary questions, we ain't going to get that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Golby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A lot of the stuff that I was going to say has just been picked up by Councillor Wilson. I do think it's appropriate to discuss this here because I think we owe it to our residents to be able to discuss this, because a lot of them were just stunned at the behaviour of the shutting down of debate of not just of Councillor Evans but of pretty much everybody else when we only have 2 speakers and then move to the vote. That's not debate, that's not fair representation. But to then actually deny a councillor the opportunity to represent the people that have elected him based on what was completely political lines. Again, as Councillor Wilson has said, let's not be beating around the bush with this. It was an overtly political move, and silencing Councillor Evans wasn't actually originally initiated by the mayor. Now, I chair committees, one of which the mayor attended last week, and ironically it was on equality. Neutrality is the key. When you are sat in the chair, you have to be neutral. You have to be, because otherwise, what's the point? You don't get all the views across, and you don't get a fair and balanced representation. So neutrality is the way to go. This office of mayor is not neutral in any way, shape or form, and it's deeply political, and it's not really on. So it is really, until you can get a grip of that, then it shouldn't be there, because it is a tool to silence the opposition when you don't like what's being said. Just as the move to the vote, when it's an arbitrary decision by the mayor that we've had enough debate, well, 2 people does not constitute enough debate. And again, this again is really an arbitrary decision made by the mayor. Now, again, it's political string pulling, and it's not really on. It's unfair to not allow a councillor to represent his views on one of the most important aspects of local government in sorry, are you all right, Madam Mayor?
Yes,
in local government in recent years, and the whole meeting, quite frankly, was well, it was badly chaired, it was badly orchestrated, and it was clear that it was the constitution is being used as a stick to beat us with and try and silence the opposition, because I don't really think you want us holding up a light to what's going on. This is not the way to do it. It's unfair, and it's really unjust. But I'm glad that it's being discussed here, because I don't get an opportunity to discuss these things at the Constitutional Working Group, because I'm not on it, and the residents don't get to actually discuss these things either. And when the constitution changes did actually come into place, and it was put out there to the residents, all the changes that were being made, a lot of people were absolutely stunned at how it was totally undemocratic on the changes that were being proposed. And this again, this is undemocratic in my eyes. You have to allow people to speak. It's unfair not to.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. Councillor Pomfret.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do wonder, having listened to the debate so far, whether people really understand what Rule 419.3 says. Well, what it says is, if a member persistently disregards or challenges the ruling of the mayor by behaving improperly or offensively or deliberately obstructs business, the mayor may move that that member be not heard further. If seconded, the motion will be voted on without discussion. If the motion is carried, the named member may not speak further at the meeting. Now, that doesn't preclude the member from voting. They can carry on being in the room, but they are not allowed to speak. And the procedures laid down in the rules followed. And it was democratically decided that the right to speak at that meeting be removed. Now, I'm sure that there are ways of interpreting this, and there are complaints about it, and those can be referred to standards. And I hope they are or have already been done. Now, this is a vast question. If you have meetings being chaired with a chair who has no power, you're in a problem. Most organisations, not just local councils, vest powers in leaders or chairs of meetings to control the time, extent and nature of contribution by members short of common law provisions. This is what the rules 419.3 and 4 do, and is similar to procedure rules nearly all councils have, as mentioned previously. Now, this is not an issue that 34 councillors can consider and then resolve in a rational and logical way. We need a small group, and we do have one already, who can have proper discussions with opportunities for detailed consideration of legal, and it is a very legal orientated issue this, and other consequences of any amendments to or deletion of these two rules. I'll not be voting in favour of deletion, and I'm sure that this issue will be examined and hopefully resolved by the Constitution Review Working Party. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Other than, I am aware of the point of order, but other than which, I don't know what it is because it wasn't actually written in the chat. Simply point of order was written as I saw it. I am aware that Councillor Evans does have the right to reply. I have two further speakers, and then I will be moving to the vote. So, Councillor Golby, have you written your point of order in the chat box?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I'm just doing it now.
Thank you.
So the point of order raised was in relation to Councillor Pomfret's last comment about the mayor having power stripped. Well, the mayor still has the power to suspend the meeting, so the power wouldn't actually be stripped. So that's actually incorrect. It doesn't make the mayor powerless. There are still plenty of other powers that can be used as a tool to calm a meeting.
Point taken, Councillor Golby. I think that we are aware of that. So I will move to the final two speakers, which were Councillors Walmsley and Longdon. And then I will be moving to the vote after Councillor Evans has wound up the debate. Councillor Walmsley.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just to speak short on this issue, actually, I'll correct and update something Councillor Wilson said, actually, which is that in addition to the items mentioned about the Speaker of the House of Commons, he does not actually vote in votes either. So maybe that's something that we should have considered, whether the mayor should strip themselves of their party position and also their voting in the same way that it's good enough for the Speaker, it should be good enough for this House and this chamber. But there was an issue, and I think this comes to the crux of the point, actually, and also why I think this needs to be removed immediately. because actually, as I recall, and as is shown on the video, there was much confusion about what the particular 419.3 meant, because we did have it where you, Madam Mayor, as chair, and the officer calling the vote did attempt to stop Councillor Evans voting, which had to be very quickly overruled by a point of order in order to ensure that his vote was cast. So I don't think it inappropriate in that instance that we look to immediately remove a power that clearly is not very well understood, which actually very, very nearly could have actually caused potentially cost liabilities to this council through judicial review of a decision, because of the inability to actually know what the limits of the powers and scopes were. So I think there is a big failing still in these 2 points, and actually to remove them immediately would be far safer than to open ourselves up to challenge. But I have to say, Madam Mayor, I think this is a very important point at the moment, very pertinent point, whether we remove these particular articles. As we know, there is all sorts of issues that with the Constitution and the interpretation, often incorrect. For example, we've had people attempt to say the Constitution doesn't allow a recorded vote on any procedural motion. That is not actually correct. It only does not allow on a motion to move to the a recorded vote to be happening upon the motion to move to the vote. We also have had, frankly, we've also had ways in which, when we were actually in the chamber, that members of the public were being cut off and refused to be allowed to ask the questions which were printed and which were on our seats from within the chamber back if we can all remember that far. It does seem such a long time ago now. In addition, Madam Mayor, I think this comes down to trust and also to legitimacy, as Councillor Wilson alluded. Not only the controlling Labour ruling group, but I think there also comes down into a trust of whether we trust the chair or not, and whether the public trusts the chair. And I have to say, from everything I've seen online, there certainly does not seem to be any amount of trust that any debate is fair, that any rules are evenly applied. For example, when we look at whether or not people are speaking to motions and specifically about those points, they are not applied fairly between the ruling group's members and the opposition's members. I think it's therefore an important point that demonstrates why allowing particular ambiguities, as it does in 4.193, there is no measurable there is no measurable there's no way to particularly measure whether somebody what constitutes deliberate obstruction. There is no way to be to measure what is improper behavior, because the same rules are not applied to both sides on most times out of 10, and that therefore does mean that these uses and the uses we saw, which is what predicates our debate and this motion here tonight, are not even and not fair, and they are partisan, and we can say that very openly. It's very clear for all to see. So, Madam Mayor, I think it'll come as no surprise that I will be supporting Councillor Evans in his motion this evening. I think it's a very important one, and I hope actually that this ignites a much larger debate on the role of the mayor and whether they should continue to be party political, whether they should continue to actually have a vote or not. In the same way, the rules that are good enough for Parliament, I don't think we can say are not good enough for our humble chamber by comparison. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Walmsley. Councillor Longden, my final speaker before I move to Councillor Evans to wind up the debate. Councillor Longden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I haven't got a picture. It's that silly thing coming up again. Sorry about that. Yeah, but the issues being raised here are ridiculous in some points. Making comparisons with Parliament, for example, and the role of the Speaker is totally out of all proportion to what we're talking about here. These rules were probably drawn up years and years ago and were then put into a kind of standing orders constitution for most local authorities to adopt or not adopt as they saw fit. And probably most of them adopted it anyway. So they've been there for years, and some of them have been used and some haven't been used over that period of time. As to saying it's a tool for the controlling group to use, it's absolutely stupid. It's not a tool. It's been used that once. I think it was used at the county council once, many years ago, but it didn't provoke this sort of response. People have to accept their own responsibilities and behave themselves. And in this particular instance, it wasn't happening. And therefore, the mayor has had little choice but to do it. I know what prompted it. The date started, and then we had points of order and points of personal explanation, and goodness knows what was thrown in before we could actually get back to the discussion. And then, unfortunately, somebody moved the vote. But I think that's probably out of frustration of trying to deal with issues that weren't relevant to the item on the agenda. And most of the residents don't really know how councils work. They don't know the rules. They haven't seen the constitution. Well, it's a mile long, isn't it? It's got stuff in there that you'd never dream of. And normal people, ordinary residents, don't understand that and possibly don't want to know. And I don't blame them. They just want to know what's happening in the borough and want to hear what's going on and what we're planning to do. And there can't be any advantage to using this to any controlling group, wherever they are and whoever they are. Unruly and disruptive behaviour means that the debate does not go on as it should. And that's the crime involved in this, because that then disenfranchises other councillors making their point and other councillors being able to contribute towards a debate. And quite honestly, that's not on. That is anti-democratic because it's a spoiling tactic. And the opposing group have found a way of actually trying to stifle debate and stop the flow of business, keep everybody around for hours, and you're using it as a tactic to filibuster and make a nuisance as much as possible to try and wear people down. And that's what it's all about. And at the end of the day, anybody doing that deserves not to be heard, because it's just a tactic to disrupt everything this council's trying to do. And if you take it off now, of course, I'm sure Councillor Evans will behave himself, won't he? Because if he's got nothing to fear and nothing to hide, nothing to hide, he can't hide behind anything. If he's got nothing to fear, he will continue to be unruly and disruptive, and there won't be any rules there for the chair to actually use. So I will not agree to taking these off. No way, because you'll just run riot and think you've got carte blanche to do exactly what you like, and you're not going to get away with that one with me. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Longdon. Could Councillors Walmsley and could councillors please put their hands down now that they have finished speaking? Councillor Evans, you wish to wind up the debate before I move to the vote.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and I welcome the number of comments which have been made by councillors from across the chamber. I'd like to start with the comments made by Councillor Longdon. I don't believe the motion sitting in front of us this evening is a ridiculous motion. It's a very, very important matter, a very important constitutional matter. This is a clause that the controlling group can use if they want to inflate their majority on the council. And I disagree with you, Councillor Lloyd. I don't believe that speaking on behalf of your residents, the people who elected you, can be any way be seen as filibustering. If we have to discuss important matters on this council until 12 o'clock at night, so be it. That's what we get paid to do, and that is what the people of the borough elected us to do. The leader of the council says that this motion would take away powers. That is factually not true. The mayor, as chair of the council, has specific powers under common law. Equally, the mayor could, if he or she wished, adjourn the meeting until order is re-established. So this motion absolutely does not take powers away from the mayor. Councillor Kondaka raised an interesting point about majorities or super majorities, I think he said, and I think it's important to remember that actually council did not vote to silence me at the meeting, because there were 17 votes for and 17 votes against the motion. So there was no clear majority in favour of preventing me from speaking, and you therefore need to question what legitimacy that vote actually has. Members may be aware that in Parliament you have the Fixed Term Parliaments Act, which requires a 2/3 majority in order to be granted assent, and of course we could look at potentially introducing that with that clause on this council. Councillor Brown is right as well. Yes, we can go away and look at this on the Constitution Review Working Party. A number of members, I think it was Councillor Walmsley, who mentioned the fact that there is no checks and balances in place with this clause. So actually, if the Constitution Review Working Party was allowed to discuss this matter, then we could bring it back to council at some point with the appropriate benchmarks in place. The leader of the council said it's not a political clause. Well, I would disagree, because the motion that was moved against me was moved by Councillor Tandy, who holds the office of mayor. It's also my understanding, and I have it on good word, that Councillor Tandy is also chair of the Labour group on the Borough Council. It's also my understanding, because Councillor Tandy was unmuted before this meeting, that she was calling members in order to check that they were attending this meeting. So you could infer from that Councillor Tandy may have certain whipping responsibilities within the Labour group on the council. So I'm afraid the office or the mayoralty on this council is a political office. It always has been under the Labour group, and it will continue to be whilst residents vote for the Labour Party in Nuneaton and Bedworth. Councillor Wilson was absolutely right. The power was abused by Councillor Tandy. As I say, the mayoralty at the moment is a political office, and Councillor Tandy didn't like what I was saying, so she decided to ban me from speaking. In conclusion, Madam Mayor, this is a very, very dangerous clause in the council's constitution. And yes, you're absolutely right. I think it was Councillor Jackson that said that other councils do have this clause. Yes, they do. But other councils allow debate to take place. In fact, speaking to people, this council is often referred to the anomaly of local government. And I'm afraid if this clause cannot be used properly by councillors, then it should not be in place. My final point is that if councillors decide to vote down this motion tonight, they are supporting Articles 419.3 and 419.4 within the Constitution. And I would ask you to consider voting in favour of the motion, because it could be you one day at a future meeting where the mayor wants to stop you from speaking on a very important matter that affects your constituents and your ward. And you may be prevented from speaking, and you may be prevented from voting. And I think that that's wholly unfair. And Councillor Walmsley was right to mention the fact that Councillor Tandy also tried to prevent me from voting. And having taken advice, I can confirm that if Councillor Tandy decided to continue with that, I would have launched a judicial review on the council's decision, because it wouldn't have been lawful in the view of certain legal experts. So I repeat what I said. If you vote against this, you are voting for a motion, a clause in the Constitution that means in future you can be silenced and you could be prevented from voting at future meetings. Madam Mayor, I move the motion and I request a recorded vote on the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Simone, would you take the vote, please?
Madam Mayor, could I ask Councillor Evans to read out the motion, as people mightn't have access to chat and it's not printed in the agenda. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, with your permission, I'm more than happy to do that.
Carry on.
Yes, the motion that I moved and that was seconded by Councillor Croft is that this council resolves to delete Articles 419.3 and 419.4 from the Constitution with immediate effect.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Simone, could you take the recorded vote, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So if you could please indicate for or against the motion as moved by Councillor Evans, please. Councillor Beaumont.
Against.
Councillor Brindley Edwards.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Croft.
For.
Councillor Daffin.
Against.
Councillor Doughty.
Against.
Councillor Elliott.
Against.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Gazane. Councillor Gazane.
For.
Councillor Glass.
Against.
Councillor Golby.
For.
Councillor Gran.
For.
Councillor Gutteridge. Councillor Gutteridge.
For.
Councillor Hancox.
Against.
Councillor Hocking.
Against.
Councillor Jackson.
Against.
Councillor Condacor.
For.
Councillor Llewellyn Nash.
For.
Councillor Lloyd.
Against.
Councillor Longdon.
Against.
Councillor Pandair.
For.
Councillor Phillips.
Against.
Councillor Pomfret.
Against.
Councillor Rudkin.
Against.
Councillor A. Sargent.
You're on no, she hasn't got it.
Councillor A. Sargent.
For.
Councillor J. Sargent.
For.
Councillor J. Shepherd.
Against.
Councillor T. Shepherd.
Against.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Tandy.
Against.
Councillor Tromans.
For.
Councillor Walmsley.
For.
Councillor Watkins.
Against.
And Councillor Wilson.
For.
That's 17 for and 17 against, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. It is 17 for and 17 against. So as I am allowed to do under the Local Government Act, I will use my casting vote against the proposal. The proposal is therefore lost. We could move on to agenda item 9D, which is the Treasury Management mid-year review. It was considered at Cabinet on the 11th of November, and it has been put forward to Council for noting only. Councillor Jackson.
Yes, Madam Mayor, can I move that this be noted? Thank you.
Is there a seconder for the proposal?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Condical.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have great admiration for our finance team, particularly Craig, who does a lot of the work on the Treasury stuff, but I'm seriously concerned about the finances of this council, as many others in the country, due to the impact of COVID. We have in this document, particularly on page 69, quite a large increase in our total proposed spending, and we have projects such as the Abbey Street redevelopment, and things we're doing such as making our independent living fire safe, which don't seem to have proper business cases. So it is not clear on the basis of what our budget latest is, what's included, what's not, and what's got a sound business case. We know the Abbey Street development has yet to have a sound business case. We know that it's actually going through and money is being spent and contracts are being signed. Likewise, we know the fire safety work is burning a phenomenal amount of money. We do need to do it, and I'm passionate that we do all this fire safety work, and it's dreadful to be called someone who wants old people to die, but we do need to have it properly budgeted and programmed so we know for the capital expenditure in this Treasury management what our spending is. Likewise, we sadly heard yesterday about the demise of Debenhams and several other retailers going into a cascade collapse. We need to know what our income impact of that is, because obviously firms that are broke do not pay business rates. So we have a serious problem. We need to actually have this spelled out to us in far more detail before we sign off this capital and Treasury report. What is happening to our finances, and there has been for years this idea that property values can only go up. We have property investments in here. Who knows what they're valued at now? So I don't think I'm happy to sign this Treasury report off, because we haven't got a sound business case yet for all the Abbey Street stuff. We've got beautiful pictures, but no sound business case, and we haven't yet got a handle on how much all the fire safety work's concerned. All I get from Councillor Watkins is, you keep asking the question. Well, I've never got a proper answer to the final expected outturn cost. So I'll be voting against the Treasury management, not because I don't trust our officers in finance, but because we haven't pinned down all the uncertainties. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Condical. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be supporting this report tonight. Not that I don't have any concerns about Abbey Street or any of the other regeneration projects which we might have. I certainly do. And I have regular conversations with officers about some of my concerns. But the issue for me is that this report isn't where the money is spent, where I certainly have big disagreements with the controlling group over, and the waste of money that we have seen over numbers of years by this authority. But what I do have is an absolute faith and trust in Craig and his team in monitoring how the money is spent, and that it is complying legally with all the requirements that he has to do. And I know from personal experience that Craig and his team are an exceptionally hard-working team, quite often burning the midnight oil, and it is quite often a thankless task. So I will be supporting this on the basis it's a report on how the money is spent, where I don't have any overwhelming concerns about that. But if this was a report on a budgetary spend about where the money is spent, I would certainly be having those disagreements. But the officers have done remarkable things in the finance department throughout COVID, and I know that they continue to do that. So I'd like to put my thanks on record, and I would hope that that would be echoed across the chamber as well. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. And I'm quite sure that all of us would agree with you about giving our thanks to our finance team. I don't have any. Councillor Jackson, did you want to write a reply?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I must dispute the statement of waste over many years. This council has always been prudent with council taxpayers' money. I share Councillor Kondaka's concerns about the implications of COVID. We have received some funding from the government, but I believe we are in need of a lot more funding in order to continue to provide those services that our residents require. I believe we do have excellent finance officers, and this report is a statement of fact. So I would hope it would get support from everybody in the council chamber, albeit a remote council chamber, but I note that Councillor Kondaka feels he cannot support it. Madam Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Would you take a vote, please, Simone? The vote is that the report be noted. The proposal is that the report be noted.
Thank you. Again, if you could please indicate for or against. Councillor Beaumont.
For.
Councillor Brindley Edwards.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Croft.
For.
Councillor Daffin.
For.
Councillor Doughty.
For.
Councillor Elliott.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Gazane.
For.
Councillor Glass.
For.
Councillor Golby.
For.
Councillor Gran.
For. For.
Councillor Gutteridge.
For.
Councillor Hancocks.
For.
Councillor Hocking.
For.
Councillor Jackson.
For.
Councillor Condacor. Councillor Condacor.
Against.
Councillor Llewellyn-Nash.
For.
Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Longdon.
For.
Councillor Pandare.
For.
Councillor Phillips.
For.
Councillor Pomfret.
For.
Councillor Rudkin.
For.
Councillor A. Sargent.
For.
Councillor J. Sargent.
For.
Councillor J. Shepherd.
For.
Councillor T. Shepherd.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Tandy.
For.
Councillor Tromans.
For.
Councillor Walmsley.
For.
Councillor Watkins.
For.
Councillor Wilson.
For.
That's carried, Madam Mayor.
That proposal is carried. Thank you. So we move on to agenda item 9E. The report was considered at licensing. Councillor Hancock, as Chair of Licensing, do you want to move any recommendations?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. At the recent licensing committee, the recommendation to council would be that the revised statement of licensing policy be recommended to council for adoption. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Evans. Oh, sorry. Is there a seconder for that proposal, please?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank
That's
you,
the
Councillor
proposal.
Evans.
Can I?
Councillor Evans.
Okay, yeah. No, I raised my hand in order to second the proposal by the chair of the licensing committee. As the vice chair, I'm happy to support this as I did at the committee. My understanding is that the revision of the statement needs to be in place by the 7th of January. However, I do welcome that the licensing department intend to look at this statement again when the pandemic comes to an end, whenever it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Condical.
I'm very confused, Madam Mayor. In our paperwork, it says nothing apart from see Appendix A. And then on the website, the Appendix A doesn't have an attachment. It's just a single sheet that says. So I don't know if anyone's actually got a copy of this in their paperwork somewhere. Because say the versions on the website for the meeting, the Appendix A is just a single page that says this is the appendix. So I don't know what's going on there. But if we can't tell me what's going on, could someone just tell me what the changes are? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I believe the Appendix A was sent out in the last couple of days on email. If it was the licensing policy that you were talking about, Councillor Condicut, I've got it here and I printed it off email.
Oh, it's not on the public website, so we're voting on something that the public can't see in terms of the council meeting today.
Councillor Hancock's.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I'm not overly concerned about that. What was printed on the agenda was printed prior to the meeting. And so the single page that came out, the wording was pretty much the same except for the word revised in it. There's not an issue as such because the government has put a hold on these matters for the time being. Locally, we have a number of local authorities that actually combine together, if you like, for want of a better word, to set an agreed policy. So basically, we reviewed what was in front of us, the reasons why it was remaining as it is for now, with a commitment to, as soon as we're allowed to, is to review that policy again. So although the policy stretches from 2021 to, I think it's 26, there will be a very early review of that as soon as we're able to. That helps, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hancock's. I don't have any more speakers, so we can move to the vote. I think it's best that we take a formal vote on this one, please, Simone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, please indicate for or against. Councillor Beaumont.
For.
Councillor Brinley Edwards.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Croft.
For.
Councillor Daffin.
For.
Councillor Doughty.
For.
Councillor Elliott.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For, and could I request my vote is recorded in the minutes?
Councillor Gazane.
For.
Councillor Glass.
For.
Councillor Golby.
For.
Councillor Gran.
For.
Councillor Gutteridge.
For.
Councillor Hancock's.
For.
Councillor Hocking.
For.
Councillor Jackson.
For.
Councillor Condicore.
For.
Councillor Llewellyn-Nash.
For.
Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Longdon.
For.
Councillor Pandare.
For.
Councillor Phillips.
For.
Councillor Pomfret.
For.
Councillor Rudkin.
For.
Councillor A. Sargent.
For.
Councillor J Sargent.
For. Ready to vote in.
Councillor J Shepherd.
For.
Councillor T Shepherd. Councillor T Shepherd. For. Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Tandy.
For.
Councillor Tromans.
For.
Councillor Walmsley.
For.
Councillor Watkins.
For.
Councillor Wilson.
For.
Thank you. I think that was unanimous. Yes, thank you. We're moving then on to item 10, which is questions from members. There are 3 submitted members' questions. Councillor Evans, can I invite you to ask your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In accordance with the Crime and Policing Act 2014, the council can issue community protection notices in order to deter antisocial behaviour across the borough. Could the portfolio holder please inform me how many community protection notices the council has issued since the 1st of January 2020?
I believe Councillor Watkins, do you wish to reply?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Evans, for your question. To answer your question, that the council has not issued any community protection notice since 1st January 2020 in relation to antisocial behaviour. However, there is reasons behind that. Community protection notices are only one measure against how we can deal with antisocial behaviour. Before a CPN can be served, the subject must be given written warning stating that a CPN will be issued. In order to issue a CPN, the following 3 criteria must all be applied. The behaviour is having a detrimental effect on the quality of the life of those in the locality, is unreasonable, and the behaviour is of a persistent or continuing nature. We continue to look at the most appropriate measures to deal with the behaviour that presents itself, and our experience is that a warning is often sufficient to put an end to the unwanted behaviour. But since the 1st of January, the Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council has issued 63 warnings, 23 notices and 3 injunctions to seek possessions of properties due to antisocial behaviour. Since the 1st of January 2020, in partnership with the police, there's been 14 warnings advising the perpetrator to cease the unwanted behaviour and 5 notices usually decided.
Chris, Councillor Watkins, can you just repeat those figures again? We lost you for a minute.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I'll go back to the
From
January
2020, I think from 2020.
Okay, then sorry. 63 warnings. This is from the Borough Council. 63 warnings advising the perpetrator to cease the unwanted behaviour. 23 notices to seek possession of the property due to the persistent antisocial behaviour. 3 injunctions to seek possession of the properties due to antisocial behaviour. And then since the 1st of January 2020, in partnership with the police, there's 14 warnings advising the perpetrator to cease the unwanted behaviour and 5 notices usually decided via the antisocial behaviour partnership meeting. I hope that's all that Councillor Evans requires, but if he does need anything else, please get in touch with Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. The second question. Thank you. The second question, Councillor Condacourt, can I invite you to ask your question, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I ask my question, I'd like to answer question 3, because we've got one of these strange situations where one Labour councillor is asking another Labour councillor about something I've done. And I think
Councillor Condacourt, I have you down as asking question 2. Could you please ask your question as question 2? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, as long as I'm allowed to respond to question 3, which is about me, then I'll be happy to do so.
Well, would you please ask your question as question 2? I will deal with question 3 when we get there.
Thank you, Madam.
2, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Over the last 4 years, I've been reading the minutes of the Coventry and Warwickshire Local Enterprise Partnership Board meetings, and have been concerned by the lack of recorded input from our Borough Council representatives when they attend. We're not using the opportunity of a place on the LEP board strongly enough to get a more successful and sustainable borough. Now that the LEP agendas are published before the board meetings take place, can myself and a few other fellow councillors have an informal meeting with our representative ahead of each of the LEP board meetings to discuss what's on the LEP board agenda? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, do you wish to reply?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. As always, I am happy to speak with fellow councillors. However, I will not be arranging specific meetings before each meeting of the Local Enterprise Partnership Board. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Question 3 is Councillor Phillips, you wish to, can I invite you to ask your question, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would like to ask Councillor Watkins the following. With reference to the Cleaver Garden area, where I know Councillor Watkins has done a lot of work, could Councillor Watkins tell me if the Warwickshire County Councillor the area has spent any of his delegated budget to help improve the area with you? Because I understand he has been asking for improved parking facilities for the football area to be marked out to stop people parking and any emergency work to the highway. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Councillor Watkins, do you wish to reply to the question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Phillips, for your question. Since becoming Cabinet Member for Housing and Communities in 2019, I have been very involved with all the work that we have been doing. When we started doing the slabs to tarmac work at Cleaver Gardens, I went to take a look at the excellent work that was being done, not only on the slabs to tarmac, but also on the surrounding groundwork that was being done to complement this work. I also noticed that the public footpaths, public roadways, drains and street lighting are in a poor state of repair. So I started to ask questions about this. It would seem that the estate was applied for by Nuneaton Borough Council to be built back in 1974 to 76 and was finished in 78. And so all the roads, paths, drains and street lights should have been taken over by Warwickshire County Council and maintained at public expense when it was finished some 42 years ago under the Highways Act of 1980. I asked officers to start conversations with Warwickshire County Council about this, and again, and asked for some information myself. And we are now in talks with Warwickshire County Council about the adoption of Cleaver Gardens. I also found out that the councillor for the area keeps making demands of emergency work to be done, parking areas for football players, and areas to be marked out for no parking, as £130,266 still left in his delegated budget account, for which is highways improvements. And so he could have spent some of this money on improving the area, along with all the work that Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council are doing. To finish off, Councillor Phillips, I am very proud of all the work that Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council staff do to improve the areas and lives of the people in the borough, and by working with Warwickshire County Council in the future, I hope that we can look at and solve many of the problems that are present at the minute, rather than misleading people and not doing the work. So in answer to your question in full, Councillor Phillips, of the £130,266 still left in his delegated budget, and since he's been elected, he has spent nothing on Cleaver Gardens. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. I know you have your hand up, Councillor Tromans, but I cannot take you because we only have a question and an answer on members' questions. And Councillor Kondarka, I understand that you have already been given advice from officers that you cannot make a personal explanation on this particular item. So I cannot allow it, sorry.
Madam Mayor, this is why the council gets into disrepute, because if you let me finish, Councillor Watkins can say something about me which is not actually true. I cannot spend highways budget on Cleaver Gardens until the point at which it is adopted, and I have offered to
speak on this item.
But you have let Councillor Watkins say something that is not true, and I have already spoken on this.
Would you please stop speaking? Thank you.
Will you let me respond to Councillor Watkins? This is exactly the problem that Councillor Evans has. The system is being abused so that...
Mr. Could you turn Councillor Condacourt? Say thank you. Councillor Tromans, I cannot take your. Yes, there is a point of order from Councillor Evans. Have you put in the chat, Councillor Evans? Sorry, I haven't had a chance to have a look.
Yes, it says point of order in there. In accordance with the Constitution, it is the right of a member of the council to refer the content of a question to an overview and scrutiny panel. And I think that given what the portfolio holder has said tonight, that Councillor Kondarka has that amount in his delegated budget for highways issues, I believe that we should refer this question to an overview and scrutiny panel to scrutinise why Councillor Kondarka has not spent his delegated budget on Cleaver Gardens.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, that's the second councillor that has attacked me and accused me of stuff. You let Councillor Evans have a speech there, so I must have a speech in reply.
Councillor Condacourt, I am not going to allow this to continue.
You allowed Councillor Evans to accuse me of something.
Councillor Evans raised a point of order.
And he made the accusation that I haven't spent money that I could spend.
Councillor Condacourt, Councillor Evans raised a point of order. That is why I had to allow him to speak.
And I raised a point of personal explanation you've not allowed me to have.
You are responding to the question, Councillor Condacourt. It was not a point of personal information. You were responding to the question. The advice that you have already been given and has been forwarded to me is that you could not answer after Councillor Watkins had spoken. So that is the only advice that I can give.
But there is £80,000 waiting for pedestrian crossing on the Wellington Road. There is this year's work done.
Councillor Tromans, you mentioned that you just in the chat you wanted to ask the portfolio holder to confirm the figure as his sound was muffled. Would it be satisfactory if those figures were actually sent to you? I can ask Councillor Watkins if that's what you prefer.
No, that's fine. Yeah, if you could just send me the figure, please, Councillor Watkins.
So long as you get the results.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Now, Councillor Evans, in his point of order, made a proposal. Excuse me if my machine is just acting up. Councillor Evans made a proposal about it being referred to an overview and scrutiny.
Point of order.
Is
Councillor Evans?
Yeah.
Given what Councillor Knark has said, I think he said that he couldn't use his delegated budget at Cleaver Gardens. I'm not entirely sure if that's correct or not, but given that, I would like to withdraw my...
Okay. So we have no proposal. So that is the end of the members' questions. So I am going to, at this point, close this meeting, and we will be having a 5-minute adjournment until we begin the agenda for the extraordinary meeting of the council. Thank you.
Hi, can I just make sure everyone knows that they need to leave this meeting shortly and join the other team's meeting, as it's 2 separate live streams?